All right, so we're going to move on to our away opponents. We've already covered the Bills, Jets, and Patriots. Dolphins will be traveling there. First game we're going to go through. I'm sorry to who I gave this to. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
You can give me a bad one. I had two good ones.
All right, Anthony, I'm going to give you the Browns.
That's the best one.
Is it?
It's terrible.
Anthony,
That's why it's
the
good.
Browns. The Dolphins played them last year. Not a fun football game to watch at all.
No.
I'm hoping this one's going to be a little bit more fun to watch. Hopefully, Tua will play well, and but we are traveling to Cleveland. Hopefully not in December. Anthony, talk to me about the Cleveland Browns.
Kind of crazy that we're playing them in back-to-back years. I guess every so often it just cycles that way. I think 2010, 2011 was the last time we played them back-to-back. Like you said, last year's game was not fun. I mean, our offense stunk. Their whole team stunk. We came out of it with a W, but nobody felt good about it. It was one of the. I remember coming on here afterwards and being like, "That was such a painful game to watch." It was Tyler Huntley versus was it Dorian Thompson-Robinson at that point?
Yes, it was.
Oh my goodness!
DTR.
Just what the NFL was hoping for it in week 16 or whatever it was. Absolute. I don't know what's going to happen with this team. This team is really pushing the Jets for the most tragic team in the league. Like, no matter what they do, they can't seem to get out of their own way. Like, they had great success the year before this last year in 2023, right? Playoff team in 2023, and then 2024, they're a top five. Are they a top 5 pick again? I think. Like, just absolute disaster. They might lose Myles Garrett. He says he doesn't want to be there. They say they're not trading him under any circumstances, which to me means if the Titans offer the first overall pick, maybe they'll give him up. But that's all that they're willing to listen to, which then the ball is back in Myles Garrett's court, and we got to see what he, decides. Their quarterback situation is something that everybody except for apparently the Browns saw coming 4 years ago when they signed Deshaun Watson to that mega deal that literally nobody else was offering to him. Absolutely crazy. And then the awkward press conference, which I'll never forget. Like, the owner has his daughters up there giving support behind a guy who was just accused of molesting women. What the hell is going on? Like, oh man, sometimes the NFL makes you really kind of wonder, like, all the stuff they put in place to kind of help out these different situations like that, and then they let that happen at a press conference. It's crazy.
But Anthony, they wanted an adult in the room. That's the reason they got rid of Baker. Remember? I mean,
listen, the bottom line is if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a team. And Deshaun Watson is terrible. Jameis Winston probably doesn't re-sign, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson is just a pipe dream. So I think this will be it'll be a blowout for us if Tua plays. If Tua doesn't play, we probably still win. By the way, we're 4-1 in our last 5 against them.
Okay. Yeah, that Browns game last year, I remember coming on after that game and just like you said, Anthony, that was just not fun at all. It wasn't
a hard
a fun
show
game
to do.
It wasn't a fun game. Yeah,
you remember the show?
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about?
We were just like,
yeah, it was not a fun game to talk about. It was not a fun game to.
Not to fully extend this, but also the other thing too is Nick Chubb most likely. Well, I won't say most likely. It looks like he's going to hit free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows where that goes? I know he's coming off of that knee injury last season. I don't want to say he even looked really bad last year. He just didn't look like Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
So
historically, running backs with that injury never recover, and it's a shame because I love Nick Chubb, but I just don't think.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. I'm honestly hoping he does, come back to form on another team or whatever. But like Anthony said, I don't know if that's in the cards for him. I'm going to move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Pittsburgh Steelers, led by, who knows, probably not Russell Wilson. Potentially Matthew Stafford. I know he's on the trade block. Potentially Sam Darnold. I don't know. We don't know who their quarterback's going to be, but we know who their coach is going to be because he's been the same coach that's been in Pittsburgh for the past 2 decades, it feels like now.
And I don't think he's ever had a losing season, right?
He has not.
Ugh,
and so no matter what, we're going to get a dogfight from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe the last time we played them, we eked out a victory against them. They didn't look nearly as good that year, but we did eke out a victory. I'm going to ask Josh about this one. Josh, talk to me about the
about the
Steelers.
Steelers, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? They're an iconic franchise, right? I mean, I think that's pretty easy. We have played. I don't have the last 5-year stats. They're the only team I forgot to do because I figured I wouldn't get them. But hey,
I'll
that's
get
my
them for
luck.
you while you talk. Yep.
Thank you. They have some good pieces, right? They also have some bad pieces, which are masked by their head coach and their coaching staff. I will be very curious to see who they get at quarterback. I don't see Stafford going there because I think, like a lot of the other teams that need quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers are done with the Russell Wilson stopgap old aging vet type, thing. I think they want to find the solution. And I'm not saying it's in the draft this year. And maybe they might not have a choice. Maybe they do have to sign a stopgap for a year, right? But I think that their ultimate goal is to figure out a way to land or trade for a franchise type quarterback so they can start focusing on what they focus on, which is their defense.
Yeah.
3-2 in their last 5. The last time we played them was in 2026, 16-10. Anthony, was that a victory?
2022. Did I write
2022? Nope.
No, you're right.
2026 is next year. You're in the future.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome. We win 16-10.
We'll beat them next year too.
Put your money on it.
That was a home game. We beat them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but like we said, right in the team introduction to this team, their head coach is amazing. And I stopped myself from cussing. See, guys, I'm character growth. Not having a losing season ever is exactly where there will be next year, no matter what happens. Right.
Yeah. It's damn impressive what Mike Tomlin does down there. There are very few I mean, I shouldn't say there are very few coaches I would trade in for Mike McDaniel, but if there's one coach in the NFL I would trade in for Mike McDaniel, Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, right at the top of the list. So we're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Heartbreaking loss against the Colts last year. Anthony Richardson did not play well.
Neither did we.
A couple of key fumbles from Raheem Mostert. There was a key fumble from Raheem Mostert in that one, and I believe Alec Ingold.
And Tyreek Hill.
Okay, yeah. So we kind of beat ourselves in that one, but we're going to move on to the Indianapolis Colts. That is an away game in the Dome in Lucas Oil Stadium. Taylor, take it away.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Tag, you're it.
Look, I say that because this team just the Dolphins are considered, a dumpster fire sometimes. And we talked about the Jets and the Saints. The Colts are starting to get there.
Yeah.
And we've seen what's happened over the past season in particular with Anthony Richardson tapping out of the game and a lot of allegations about the culture over there and how winning doesn't seem to be on the mind of the team over there. So there's a lot of work to be done. Chris Ballard came back. Shane Steichen came back, and I was very surprised by that. You still do have a lot of good pieces here like Jonathan Taylor, Quentin Nelson. Who knows what they end up doing with Will Fries if he ends up ultimately re-signing with the team or go somewhere else in free agency. Maybe
really hoping he comes here.
A Dolphin. Yeah, maybe he becomes a Dolphin. Who knows? But you have Alec Pierce, I want to say.
Yep.
Wide receiver from Cincinnati. Josh Downs, a wide receiver from North Carolina. And I'm really just trying to focus on the offense because I think the defense, other than DeForest Buckner, is really tough to look at. So this is a team right now, right before free agency, that it really lives and dies with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
So it depends on his development there.
Yeah, and thus far he hasn't really developed into. When he came out of college, Anthony Richardson was one of those guys where I thought this guy needs to sit for like 2 years minimum.
Yeah, the talent in the world is just about getting him to get into the finer details of the position.
Yes,
A
sir.
lot of like Jalen Milroe, what people said about him so far in this process. So.
All right, so we have two more teams left. They are both NFC South opponents. I'm gonna ask you about this first one here, Josh. The Atlanta Falcons. Michael Penix is probably going to be their quarterback. Well, not probably. He is going to be their quarterback. Raheem Morris is going to be their coach still. And that's another dome game, which kind of works in the Dolphins' favor, for being honest about it. So that's two dome games away for the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hate that. So talk to us about the Atlanta Falcons here, Josh.
Yeah, I think they turned the corner, in my opinion, right? I mean, the Atlanta Falcons for the last handful of years have been kind of the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, kind of Cleveland Brown type. I really like what they have across their team at key positions. They have Bijan at running back. They have Jesse Bates at safety, cornerback. I know he plays kind of everywhere. Chris Lindstrom at center, Penix at quarterback, who I was a big fan of. I drafted him in my in one of my dynasty leagues. AJ Terrell, who I think is a top cornerback in this league, and Kyle Pitts, who I know up and down, kind of left and right, but big body, fast, can catch, can sort of not really block, never mind, but but really good pieces at really key positions, right? And how this offense runs, they have the pieces at certain places, so they're now able to kind of turn around and look at where they need to build, because they have all of these, they have really good players locked up for the foreseeable future, so they can allocate resources to continuing to build the offensive line for for Penix, who I think is going to be their starter next year, and which will open up Bijan and the running back room to have a better season than they have in the last 2 years. They can put some money into the linebackers and into the defensive line and into the secondary if they choose to. So they don't have a lot of holes on this team. They're not great at anything, but they're good at a lot of things.
Yeah. You forgot Drake London. I was surprised about that, Josh. Drake London's he's a nice number one wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah, I knew
you
that.
can't mention Kyle Pitts and forget Drake London.
I did. I did.
That's fair.
I failed you guys. I will say we've only played them once in the last 5 years at the Rock, and we won. Oh, yeah, we won narrowly. It was like 30-28 or something like that.
Fair enough. So, that's going to be an interesting game. It's one I don't really have a feel for, and I won't have a feel for it until probably the week before.
Well, I will say this. I actually do, and I think this is a victory for the simple fact that Penix, if he is the starter, it'll be his first season starting. Now, he is good, and he does have legs, and he has a decent arm, but I think how I envision this team building in the offseason, we're going to set up perfectly to defend the run with hopefully another linebacker and some better cornerbacks and a whole new safety room. And you know what? The laundry list of things we need to do. So I think we set up pretty well, especially because it is in the dome. Right.
Yeah. All right. So our last away opponent, last but not least, but they have been kind of one of the least teams over the past few years. We have the Carolina Panthers. Now, Bryce Young, kind of a rough start to his career. He got benched last year. And when he came back, he started to show why he was number one overall pick in the draft. He really picked it up for them, which is it was kind of cool to see, because I'm kind of cheering for Bryce Young a little bit. And I love the way he handled his benching, first and foremost. When he was benched, they said, "What do you think about your benching?" He said, "Well, I didn't play well enough to keep the starting job, so they should have benched me." Whereas other quarterbacks would have been a little more defiant about their benching. So Anthony, I'm going to ask you about the Carolina Panthers here. This is going to be a game in Carolina, obviously. Warm weather, hopefully warmish weather. So tell me about it, Anthony.
Yeah, let's start off by saying, they re-signed Andy Dalton already, so it's one big backup quarterback off the market there. And a good job by them to get somebody solid behind, Bryce Young really quickly. But like you said, Bryce played well at the end of the year. I mean, he went 4-6 once he took over. He played the last 10 games of the season and goes 4-6. It's not bad on a team that to be honest, many people didn't think we're going to win at all. Starting 0-4, 0-5 this season, actually. And then he capped the season off with his best performance as a pro. He threw 73% with 3 touchdowns against the Atlanta Falcons, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game as well. So 5 total touchdowns to cap his season off. I can't think of a better confidence booster than that. So I have to think that Carolina's going to come out, doing a little bit better this year. Historically, Miami has only had 8 total matchups against the Carolina Panthers, if you can believe that. We're 6-2 against them all time. 2-2 in our last 4, though. So not much historically to go off of there. Listen, I think this one largely depends on when we play them. If we play them early in the season, I think that honestly gives us a little bit of a better chance. Because I think later in the season, Bryce could really be picking up steam and figuring things out. And that's never good for you, right? So this is not a game like next year when we make our picks. It's not a game I'll be fearful of, but I do think it's a young team with good potential, and if their quarterback continues to improve on that final week of the regular season, he could really be something that they thought he was all along. First overall pick of the NFL draft. So year 3 is a big year for the quarterback. So we'll see what Bryce does.
Yeah, this isn't an automatic W in my eyes. Like you said, Anthony, like this is a game we're going to have to analyze and go over, and hopefully Bryce Young just isn't building on the way he finished last. I had no idea, 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns, right?
That's
crazy.
Yeah. I had no idea about that, but
they won 44-38 in overtime.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, Jesus.
So yeah, he could be a potential monster coming up.